Your job as an artist is to excavate and dig and look at life around you and work out what the soul is of everything. It's not for you to replicate what you see. It's not for you to act like amazing high resolution mini cameras. Once you know the difference between your artist's voice, which is pretty much the colour of your soul, and your artist's style, you'll start to understand why I keep going on about loaves of bread versus the baker. And this, my friends, is a loaf of bread. You can call that loaf of bread whatever you like. In Australia, he has many names. This is what artists are here to do. They're here to dig out the soul, to find the soul in things. That's what you can do. Why would you settle for something else? Why would you live a fraction of your capacity as an artist? You've got so much in you. But you can't do that until you actually know the difference in yourself between your artist's voice and your accumulated artist styles, the things that you make, various tricks that you get stuck on or you find that are popular, various, in a way they're kind of like a racket. It's okay, it's how we make money. Milking our rackets or our loaves of bread is how we make money. But never be fooled. Are you fooled by these fools? Are you fooled by these loaves? Are you fooled by the loaves that we see on the telly or on Twitter, whatever, X, telling you what they're doing for you? Are you fooled by that? Do you think they are what reality is? Do you think they are the authority for you? Or do you know because you can see it in them? You know yourself when I put it to you like that. An actor is an actor. That's just a role. So when we talk about an actor, a famous actor, we don't have any problem, nor does the actor. The actor does many roles through their lives. Their role is to move roles. So they make many products with their talents. Maybe when they're young, they play a young role. And as they get older, they change their roles. The actor is an actor who plays many roles. But the actor that you see is still not who that person is. The artist's voice or the artist is the one behind that capacity to read those scripts and play those roles. The roles are literally your artist's styles. Just imagine an artist playing one role their entire life. Now I know there's some long-running series, but come on, doesn't make sense, does it? So why would you think that as an artist, that a style that brought you success when you're starting out should be the same thing you're doing when you're 50 years old or even 40 years old? Doesn't make any sense, does it? So, you know, this is what we've got to get over. Are politicians and our great leaders of the world real people, or are they loaves of bread? Who are they? Who's the real Prime Minister of Australia at the moment? Who is he? Is it Albo? Or is it someone else? Is Albo an actor? Maybe. What role is Albo playing? What role do they all play when they go into Canberra and start doing their thing? What role are they playing? Is that who they really are? Keep asking yourself those questions. What role are you playing as an artist when you choose to double down on a style, which I call a loaf of bread? What are you doing to yourself when you identify yourself with one little fraction of what you can do? Okay, let's get on with this video. I didn't go to art school. I didn't do an art degree at all. I just started doing. And over 38 years now, I lived as a full career artist. More than 60 solo exhibitions with commercial galleries. I opened my own galleries, 7 of them. I ran a print business for over 3 decades. I dealt with thousands of clients, collectors, and contracts. I've seen the inside of success and had many bruises of failure. And I've also been beaten up verbally and professionally by the art institutions and some of the most snotty-nosed gallery owners you could imagine, because I called them out continually. I didn't play by their rules, and I refused to stay locked in boxes, brand boxes. But despite that, I built a deeply supportive client base and I enjoyed real lasting success. Now, here's why I say this. I know what it's like to be both celebrated and punished as an artist. You do need a fairly thick skin, or perhaps we could say a fair amount of chutzpah. Is that the word? Or confidence. You've got to believe in yourself. You need to be able to sort out the garbage criticism, that takes an understanding of human nature and when people are just being jealous and sourpusses. And you need to also be able to work out the critique that's useful, that you can grow from. It's really hard to hear some of that. I know what it's like to be told to stay in your lane, keep your one style, don't grow, don't change, and the opposite. And I also know how miserable that makes you long term because I lived it. I copped the most criticism because I was successful, because I sold work. That seemed to stir up the nastiness in some of those more snooty-nosed galleries, mostly probably because I wasn't in their stable. Don't you love that word, stable? The stable of artists. When I hit burnout in my 40s, I thought I might walk away from painting altogether and become a writer. I always wrote from when I was a little girl. I loved writing, poetry, the works. But instead, I was pushed into studying something that completely transformed me. I needed to deepen my whole career, really. I wasn't really interested in doing like a master's in art. What point was that? I kind of already knew the game. However, a rare master's degree in Jungian depth psychology, and that changed everything for me. For 2 decades, I've studied myth, soul, and the psychological foundations of our creative life, right back to the beginning of time or recorded time. I almost became a Jungian analyst, and I've integrated other methods of understanding human nature as well, like the MBTI, Myers-Briggs, which I've worked with for over 30 years, including at an advanced practitioner level. Most of why I pursued it was to understand my children because they kept getting put in boxes all the time. And I resisted that because I didn't see them as being faulty when they were little. I saw them as having a creative spirit that they were trying to shove in a box. But then I turned it on myself and wow, what a roller coaster ride. To this day, I have been a mystery to myself. So it's amazing. Those tools confirm something very important for me. And that's why I sit here and I can tell you right now, no advice that I can give works for every artist. And it's one of the reasons I have stalled and put off making this kind of channel. In fact, I've written 2 books on the artist's voice over the last 10 years, and I have not published either of them because I realized afterwards that they weren't about the real artist's voice. They were about how to make a lot of money in the art industry. And even that, now that I've grown older and had a few years to think about that in my, sojourn into the countryside, which I took up about 5 years ago, I've got a whole different view on this now. And that's why I can come back to you and be really clear about the whole thing. So coming back to that, I know that what's good for one group or type of artist or personality just is no good for others. So everything I tell you here, you will of course work out what makes sense for you. Because some artists don't need this advice. They don't need this coaching. They're very happy following exactly what they're doing. They've got great artisan businesses. They call themselves artists. They're happy to keep creating their product in exactly the same way, and they value different things. They may not value, changing all the time, which is what really highly creative artists do, and they might just value becoming better and better at replicating what they see and impressing you with it. That's more an artisan, a very fine craftsman. Different creative personalities need different things, and the most deeply creative ones among us, the ones who feel like restless chameleons, often struggle the most. We wake up asking every day, who am I? And then we work it out. And the next day we wake up again and say, oh, hang on, I've got a new idea. And it goes on and on. That's the ultimate explorer. How wonderful is that? Not adventurer. Always differentiate between the explorer and the adventurer. The adventurer is an adventurer. They will go on adventure, go down a path for the adventure. But the explorer is the one who goes to the new frontiers. They want to go where they haven't been before. I always think of the Australian explorers going out to the back of boondocks, dying of thirst because they couldn't stop their urge to explore. But there you go. That would be me. All along through my deep interest in typology, which eventually morphed into my Jungian master's degree and all the research that tacked onto that and went on for decades and still hasn't finished. I kept painting and my work deepened and it went all over the place. I look back at some of the work and think, oh my God, but I put it out there. Some of it would have gelled and some of it didn't. I started exploring themes eventually, like Gilgamesh and Dante's Purgatory and other big archetypal stories. Because it took me a long time to understand, because I didn't know the art terminology, that I was a narrative painter. And it was a wonderful, very educated gallery assistant, Margot, who worked for Linton & Kay, who identified that for me. She did have a serious art degree. She was very cultured and she wrote up a little blurb for one of the shows and she referred to me as a quintessential narrative artist or something like that. And I thought, oh, is that what I am? And that was really strange, but I just knew it was me. And after that, I could see things very differently. I could actually see who I was. But the clue to my artist's voice was the word that she used, narrative. It clicked with me because I'd always been a storyteller since I was a child. And that was the colour of my soul or voice. It was the real me. And I recognised it instantly. But my style was how I executed my voice. It could be in paint, words, anything really. Your style is what it looks like as a product, and that's why I call it a loaf of bread that you bake. She saw who I was. You see how that works? We don't always see it. Other people see it long before we do. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you work this out. You may not see what's going on. Anyway, somehow, despite my changes due to my ferocious baking habits, my collectors stayed with me. Now, pay attention here. Even though I changed my style many times over the 38 years I've been painting, and that is the way my paintings looked on the outside, I never changed my real self or my voice in the work. I was always a storyteller, and that is actually what my clients trusted and looked for and relied on. I had a few tricks to ease the transitions, which we'll go into in another video. They respected my willingness to evolve. And really early on in my career, because I wasn't actually swamped with, a very purist art degree. I didn't have the baggage that came with that. So I didn't sort of know all the rules. You're not supposed to make money as an artist if you have an art degree, it felt like, unless you get it from a grant. So I actually just thought, well, when the demand got too much, I just thought, I painted paintings and everybody wanted them and I couldn't keep up with it. So what I thought was, well, those popular images I could actually turn into prints. And then, because I wasn't interested in milking the clients for more and more money by painting the same paintings over and over again and, calling them originals and slapping that big price ticket on, I knew that the bulk of my clients were just normal working class people that loved the imagery. They loved what the imagery did for them. And I thought, well, why don't I just make the imagery available where they can afford it? So I made prints out of integrity. It was an integral move. Oh my goodness, didn't I cop a beating from the purists? She's too commercial. But I did. I made them, and that fed the commercial market without betraying my originals and their original concepts. This balance kept me both creatively alive and financially afloat. It was it wasn't a bad lurk. It was very distracting eventually, but Anyway, after 30 years of keeping up with all of that, exhibitions, commissions, print business, etc., pretty much supply and demand of a really good, successful career, I thought, I've had enough. I've got to change things. I was 60 years old. I decided to step away and reset. I finally found the courage. So I sold my beautiful escarpment home that looked out over the city in Perth and moved to a really small country town and bought a really crappy rundown farm. And there were other reasons for that, but not in this video. My intention was to give myself time to recover my creative voice again and just to review what I was doing. I still thought that my future was to write books, and it kind of is. Now, as I said earlier, there's all sorts of types of artists, and we all love beautiful things on our walls. But for me, as an artist, art, if you're an artist, you're not a decorator. You can do decorative art, but for me personally, art is not decoration. I love some of the decorative type abstract art and things like that, but it's decoration, right? But it is, I guess, a style. But for me, it isn't just about pretty pictures. Art is soul making. Art is myth and metaphor, not pattern making. Art gives us the opportunity. It seems such a waste of a powerful opportunity. But someone has to do the decorating, I guess. In my view, art is how we rewrite the human story. And I look around today and I see so many artists trapped. There's hardly any artists, hardly any of them are using their full capacity. Generally, they're quite trapped in those style buckets. And it's made worse because all these videos I see, what is your artist's voice? And the books, they keep telling everyone that their artist's style is their soul, or the opposite, that the only way to be a real artist is to never compromise from that, I guess you could say, soul work. If you do that, you're never going to be able to make any money. And therefore you're not going to be able to continue your career, are you? You're only going to be able to go as long as the grants go. And the art prizes, I guess. Both messages destroy artists. It ends the productivity. It ends a potential lifetime as an artist. And I know it because I've lived that myself. And that's why I created this channel. On this channel, I'm not going to be churning out tutorials. What's going on here is going to be the real psychological, emotional and existential work. Perhaps the hidden struggles that actually determine whether you last as an artist or whether you burn out. Because basically your style is not your voice. Your style is bread. You are the baker, and if you forget that, you'll end up trapped. And I know because I fought for decades. When I knew I was throwing money away at times, I knew the formula to make money every single time. But the urge for change, the urge for creative change was much stronger. And I had to go with that. And I am really glad I did, because now I can share it with you. I had to keep that alive in my own work. If you're ready to stop being stuck, to stop being a decorator, to stop being trapped in the myth that you are your style, then this is the place. I'm Helen Norton, artist, creative coach, depth, psych, nerd, soul maker, whatever. And I want you to build a creative life so strong, so authentic, it'll last you forever, right to the end. If you want to know more about this, subscribe so I land on your YouTube page, and let's keep this going. Click on this video right here to see what's next.